Profession clarifications. What has happened here? Okay, so leveling up crafting. So there are...
Yep.
Yes, how will one become more adept at crafting? Permanent forms of improvement / progression. First is improving your overall profession skill. So I assume that's just your skill number. If you've maxed out blacksmithing skill, for instance, you will craft everything better than if you've only halfway leveled through your profession. Getting better gear for your progression through higher skill and or other profession stats on gear, because of course there is crafting gear with stats, which is pretty cool. Specialization of your profession, which is the largest source of improvement. The more you specialize in more ways that help a given recipe, the larger bonus skill you will get towards that recipe, thus giving you a higher quality that you'll be able to make it at. And there's a lot to the system that I guess they're just not really prepared to reveal to us just yet.
Yeah.
There are lots of ways to earn specialization points, and doing so will be necessary to excel in your profession. Some of these sources can only be done once, others are repeatable. And this is great, we actually have some examples. Right. Making recipes for the first time. Certain discoveries in the world. An old book on a shelf, could be about alchemy, an old buried tablet, that sort of thing.
Very nice. Just find a way to make this not show up on handy notes, please.
Special quests. Completing certain profession achievements, like crafting your first max quality item. So basically just like grab bag of stuff to do, which I think that could actually end up feeling quite satisfying.
Yeah, for sure.
Some repeatables then, which are helping factions and NPCs in the world through quests, finding treasures out in the world, and fulfilling crafting orders for others. That's, of course, the player-to-player system. Now, ways to become more adept and have a better outcome each time you craft. So what we just talked about is like the high-end level for you as a crafter with that profession, but I suppose this is for the actual craft that you're making. So using higher quality reagents, first way to get them to be better. Using a new type of consumable reagent that they are calling finishing reagents. These give you bonuses while you craft the recipe, and some of them can directly improve your skill, therefore quality when used. An example might be a blacksmith using a special quenching oil, or a jewel crafter using a special polishing cloth while cutting gems. Right, interesting. So I suppose you can plug those in when you want. Which, yeah, there's a few ways that could all be quite good for player economy.
It's fairly difficult to get a grasp on this whenever it's so speculative. And we literally have no frame of reference for this. But it all sounds like really kind of, putting cynicism aside for a second, it sounds like they actually have went and designed a whole big profession system. You're going to be able to play with it, actually spend time and think about it and stuff like that, as opposed to the current existence of them. Very nice.
Yeah, so far I like what I'm hearing, totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Some crafting stats can improve the resulting crafted item. One of the stats is inspiration. The more inspiration you have, the better chance to be inspired while crafting, gaining some bonus skill to be applied to the outcome. Basically, a critical hit when you're crafting. While we want the system to be largely about long-term progression and opt-in bonuses, inspiration provides a form of opt-in randomness. If you choose to specialize or gear towards inspiration, you may be able to craft something at a higher quality than your current level of progression would otherwise allow. The idea is to allow some additional excitement to give you some of those variable outcomes, but it's never required for you to be able to make things at the highest level of quality. So basically it seems the highest level quality is always something that you can just work towards and 100% of the time get, but if you have a fuckload of inspiration, every now and then you could kind of get there a bit earlier.
Yeah.
Which, sounds
all sounds fine.
I can already see how people will be thinking about, the pros and the cons to this. I think from a sort of fantastical thing, sure, fine, works.
Yeah.
From a game system side of things, I think it is good that it seems that inspiration, it's like, is inspiration a stat that then once you have fully maxed a particular craft, inspiration is no longer required? Well, because there's going to be a maximum level of quality? Yeah,
well, that's the thing where if you think about FF for a second, because it obviously is craftsmanship and control.
Yeah.
Control is like the stat where because it's deterministic, not always deterministic, there's randomness in your actual skill of how you're doing it, but there is like a point where I can definitely get this 100% of the time, if I have these stats. Some of that requires you to be like fully BIS and always use high quality reagents. But that's the thing where you can absolutely always just go, yep. We will. You're definitely able to. You're not at the mercy of randomness, unless you're intentionally putting yourself at the mercy of randomness through not having progressed enough or skill enough. At least as far as I understand, I think that's how it works largely for all that stuff. So I imagine they know this. They're not going to go. You can only make your 10% chance to make the best gear, even at best. They're not really that dumb to do that.
I think so.
I mean, I know FF crafting does have RNG, but it's like you could outgear that. As far as I'm aware.
Yeah, because like you can just, the crafting macros, right, which kind of require the RNG to be meaningless to work, I'd assume. No, they take RNG into account largely, or they ignore RNG elements. Okay.
That's the ththing where it's like, also you can have like not like branching macros, but you can always go, yeah, here's what will work in the worst case, and you macro that, and then you press that, and it always works. Or you can do it like off the cuff and react to RNG and make it better. But it's like, that's basically it.
Gotcha.
That's basically it.
So next then, optional reagents, which are a bit different, because right now you just put them in and that's that. Well, using most optional reagents increases the difficulty of a craft, thus requiring a higher skill to craft at a high quality. Conversely, if you choose to use an optional reagent that, for instance, lowers the item level of the item you're crafting, it will actually lower the difficulty of the recipe and make it easier to craft at a high quality. So, all seems kind of cool to me. I'm excited to see how this pans out, and I imagine they'll start to do like kind of breakdown blogs at some point.
Yeah.
There are some other things though. So profession gear. What kind of sources could we expect from progression gear? Well, it's not all designed. You will certainly be able to craft gear with lots of cross-profession crafting where natural. Blacksmiths crafting mining picks and needles for tailoring is an example, and basically they are excited about the sort of cross-profession or profession thing, which all does make sense. So, good. Now, the inspiration stat. Let's talk a bit more about that. So, this is a question. So, you also gain these stats passively alongside your gear then. I thought it was only going to be part of your gear, much like how crit or haste works. Gear will definitely be a big source of these stats. Certain choices within your profession's specialization will allow you to get some of these stats. There will likely be other sources as well. Enchants, consumables, etc. Consumables. So really, consumables, what does that mean? Cross-profession, and it shows they're really trying to make this like more and more and more of a thing.
Well, it probably also means, here's your crafting flask.
Yeah.
Here's your blacksmith flask an alchemist can make. So if you have an alchemist friend, they'll make you a blacksmith flask, or buy it off the auction house, and then it'll mean you take that and then craft for like 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
Something like that, probably, I imagine so.
Yeah, stuff that just kind of like really keeps that economy going.
Which obviously, I think there's been a little bit of a mixed bag to that based on the combat consumables for Shadowlands. Because I think everyone's like, oh yeah, you put sharpening stones and oils in? Okay. Not like, yeah, they're back. Like, sure. In the like ultimate outcome of them at least.
Yeah, we'll see. Now, is there a deterministic way to gain inspiration, or is it RNG? Being inspired and gaining the bonus skill is RNG, and that RNG is based on your inspiration stat. Basically, it's a bit like how the more crit rating you have, the more you have a chance of critting. But as I mentioned above, there are lots of ways to opt into gaining inspiration stat if you want it. So they're pretty much trying to design around the downsides. We'll have to see if it works. Item quality then. What is the benefit to crafting a lower item level item at a higher quality? Yeah, good question. Okay, so here's the answer. Sorry in general, I just wanted to note that optional reagents can raise or lower the difficulty depending on the effect of the recipe. The example I mentioned above would be if we made an optional reagent like the Novice Crafter's Mark from Shadowlands, which lowers the required item level from 60 to 50 and lowers the eye level from 151 to 87. Just to be clear though, the introduction of quality along with profession stats is for Dragonflight recipes specifically. I'm just using the Crafter's, the Novice Mark to illustrate an example. So, yeah. Kind of interesting, I suppose. Maybe could be useful for like as you scale up or kind of put more reps into a recipe where you don't want to craft like loads of high difficulty badly. Maybe you'll scale up faster if you craft low difficulty to good quality.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just about always kind of trying to hit that, that like quality to difficulty curve kind of.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's a good way to have the same recipe work at multiple different points of your skill by increasing the quality level, as opposed to, you know, having to go get like harder reagents and stuff like that. It's like, oh, I've got a whole load of the basic stuff. I'll just work through them, but they're not completely pointless.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not, they'd just be maybe useful, but no.
Yeah, for some other things then. So the optional reagents, they will be a bit more like the 9.2 optional reagents in that it's just a little bit more custom and interesting than just setting stats. So that's good and important. As for the inspiration stat, that will not be a secondary stat. It won't be a normal gear. It will exist on profession gear and in other areas of the profession system. And remember, profession gear is something you automatically swap into. Doesn't seem like there's really any management that the player has to do there. Right, for the limit of having more professions on a character. Something they've discussed, currently no plans. That said, after Dragonflight, we all might feel very different about multiple professions, as this is going to be an all-new experience. So basically it's a, wait now, we'll see. Of course, in FF14, you can do all of them in one character, but of course you can play every job in one character, because the idea of character and class, to sort of use the WoW analog, is way more loose. Your character could be any class.
Yeah.
And therefore any profession, which means you can do the entire game's content in one character.
Yep, absolutely. Which makes more sense considering the amount of MSQ and stuff. It's not an alt-friendly game for alt characters, but you can do whatever you want one character, so you don't need one.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Whereas, definitely, like, it's weird. The way I play this game, I would be kind of annoyed if I couldn't have more than just 2 professions, but also I'm like, I can see how it adds to identity. I can see how it used to add to identity. Because I used to have all these, like, I can't speak, holy shit. I used to have all these, like, aspects of identity to my characters in terms of what they could do. But that's when the content made sense for that. That's when, like, I remembered being, herbalist and alchemy on my druid when I was a very, very young person. I remember my Draenei Paladin, before she was Lightforged, running around Legion with a fell slit in her arm because she was mining and blacksmith, yeah. So that's what she did for that time, and that's what it was. But now, like, because of that part of the game has fallen away so much in favor of, like, the gameplay focus, at least as far as I'm concerned, all my characters are engineers for the Shadowlands wormhole. So that's the kind of thing where I think they need to find ways to marry that, like, identity of what the class does and how it feels to be like, oh, this character has that, while also removing the feeling of just going, well, I'm going to be engineer for the wormhole and alchemist for the Philosopher's Stone, Alchemy Stone. I think that's one of the things. Maybe they know to avoid that a little bit, but it'd certainly be nice to have less limits overall, so people don't feel arbitrarily forced to do another alt for profession content. It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one.
For some other things, for the Darkmoon Fair, basically nothing to say other than something like updating the Darkmoon Fair quests could go very well with the overall update. Professions in group content then, right? Just saying. The huge focus on group content has worries for me. Could this be like a fantastic end game, alternate end game for people? So here's the response. It's tricky to thread the needle in this one because we want to reward players for doing group content. Instances are a major part of the game. Professions are meant to span pretty much every part of it. We also recognize that, as you say, they're a great place for those less interested in group content to find loads of gameplay. Given that one of our general goals for professions is a player can be very successful without needing to set foot in an instance. Right? We recognize that just because you want to craft the dragon head onto an epic helmet, you don't necessarily want to go and slay that dragon. Those are 2 distinct fantasies, and splitting those activities has a great deal of value. This is particularly because we want you to be able to think of yourself first and foremost as a scribe, a leather worker, or any other profession. For some players, ideally, their professions should be able to be the most important part of their industry, and where they choose to spend the majority of their energy. Given that, they're discussing how to achieve both of those goals, of having group content be rewarding to a player with professions, and also having it be kind of avoiding that to be required to be successful in your profession. You will absolutely be able to max out your profession skills and very successfully specialize without setting foot in an instance. It's possible though that some recipes will still come from dungeons or raids. So, interesting, expected. I imagine that some aspects of the work order system being able to take BOP items will help them get around some of these issues too.
Yeah, that's the thing where recipes will be like a forever problem on that front. But in terms of the materials, that's the big solution there. Absolutely. And that's why I think the work orders is such like a smart thing. It's such a really creative way to solve all these problems. But at the same time, I do think there's almost like the incentivizing players to step outside their boundaries, I think is something that the game really needs to keep in mind a lot of the time, which is, oh, you're afraid of group content? Well, we've put a really fucking delicious card at the end of it for you specifically. Do you want to give it a try? And the people go, fuck it, sure. That is potential to go wrong, I think, in modern World of Warcraft in a lot of ways.
With M+, yeah.
Yeah, but I think...
punishment to a new player.
Yeah, but I think there's definitely cases where they should keep that in mind as a possible tool. Instead of going, oh no, you're allowed to live in your little crafting bubble. I think that's okay, but people should be encouraged to step out of it every once in a while for a more healthy cross-progression game. And I'm definitely saying this a little bit from the perspective of, I guess it's just I'm thinking about like Transmog, and specifically I'm thinking about Glam and FF, where I know people who are like, well, I don't know them personally, but I've seen people who are like, I have to fucking go and try to find a party for that ultimate just so I can get that weapon because I really want that weapon because I really want to look cool. Like, they don't really care too much about doing the content. They want the actual appearance from it. So they're going to go out of their way and do it even though they're not, like, naturally inclined. They're not sweaty, hardcore raiders, but they're willing to try that because they want the shiny weapon. I think that's, obviously people just fucking buy boosts and shit sometimes for that. That's why not every...
You said the word.
Yeah, that's why...
You said the word, Matt.
Yeah.
Oh no, boosts.
Yeah, that's a small part of why some triple legends you find are fucking useless.
That is why...
Yeah.
Crafter of this blue post.
Yeah.
You should have just said, easy, just boost.
Just boost.
And then...
I mean, that's a problem, yeah.
And then post a link to Mike Ybarra's guild. Just
exactly,
just boost, easy, I know a guy. Just,
yeah. That's the problem. It's like, yeah, don't turn around and put this behind, oh, if you need cutting edge to get this recipe, don't do that.
They won't.
Yeah, but if it's like kill, get ahead of the curve LFR version, kill the emboss on LFR, something like that.
Oh, Jesus, Matt, that's rough content.
But it's still
now you tell me it's normal, and we could be talking.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the thing where I think they'd never put it behind normal, I don't think. If they wanted people to have it, if they wanted crafter only people to have it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I'm just fucking around with how normal's easier than LFR sometimes.
Yeah,
that said, people say that to me all the time. I'm sure I believe them. I haven't done LFR in a long time.
LFR's a fucking nightmare.
I'm sure. It's a bit like how, wasn't it at that time Preach found that like normal mode was just the worst place to be in?
Did it?
Because it was like insane fucking gutter land.
Yeah, that's the thing where it's not about how difficult... Okay, if difficulty is not a problem to you, the player, then because it's a group content, the difficulty is, it's a group difficulty check, not an individual difficulty check. And people who are in Heroic are more likely to be better players than people who are in Normal, which means Heroic is easier than Normal. That's how it works.
It's all madness.
Yeah, it's fucking mad, but that's how it works.
Yeah, okay, old recipes. Basically, there's value in something like that for the work order system, but right now work orders are for Dragonflight. Makes sense. For crafting inventory, they're aware that inventory space is an issue and they're currently looking into what they could... Please! Give us a materials bag. Oh, that would be great.
We need...
oh, man. Just imagine you have like a many slot material pane in your bags.
Yeah.
Oh, other games have got things like that.
That'd be awesome. You know what we really need more than anything else?
Yeah?
We need, one, stop fucking deciding everything that we get. Every system has 4,000 items that are unique.
Please.
I like the flavor of artifact power because you can click it and it goes away. I like the flavor of anima, but you can't click it and it goes away, which just means your bags are full of shit all the time unless you stop and dump it off. That's fucking annoying. The Protos form synthesis, great system overall, generally speaking, but also has a bunch of items that clog up your bags. What was the recent one? There's something else that clogs up your bags loads in a way. But what I think they need is the reagent bank to be about 4 times the size. Because the reagent bank is perfectly fine within one expansion. Whenever you have BFA mats that now you can't fucking sell because no one's buying them, and your reagent bags full of them, or if you're like me and have a bunch of ghost iron and some of the lava shit from Firelands and BFA materials and WAD materials and Legion materials because you're stupid. That's basically more reagent pack space would solve this because you can access stuff from it. It's like
true.
Inventory management. I don't think should be a part of a crafter's gameplay too much, unless it's probably not. Probably not anymore. Probably not.
Yeah. Well, okay. Another thing, cross account-wide recipes. Probably no.
That's unfortunate. Because maybe if that's just a case of this would take us time to implement and we couldn't be bothered, play one fucking crafter or play one of this.
Well, yeah, so they said this isn't on our current plans as we concentrate on other aspects of the profession system for the moment.
Well, that's fair. If they could flick a switch, I'm sure they would. Because it doesn't make any sense otherwise.
Yeah, no, maybe there's more complexity than we'd give credit. Gathering professions. Oh, basically saying, hey, did we make all 3 gathering ones secondary professions? Which, okay, right. We haven't discussed the details of gathering as much with you all yet, but I will know we are adding quite a bit of depth at gathering as well, so we're not considering making them secondary professions.
Yeah.
Well, if that is because they earn their depth via cool design and cool gameplay, then great.
Yeah.
Sure. Look, personally, I would be all for more professions on one character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally would be. But
then that is a problem. Because if you put all of the gathering professions on a single character, then you've just got bots going rampant. So you do. Bots are weird. I mean, it's literally there's one. There's
sad.
I mean, what is like herbing, mining, skinning. So it doesn't really change anything. But yeah, that's just a bit of a joke. But no, I think there's one thing I would like to say, which is the idea of we haven't discussed the details of gathering as much with you all yet. Based on how they've basically preempted everything with a big post.
Yeah.
About everything and like properly had time to have feedback and stuff like that from, hey, like this is like the second time they've had a big conversation about professions with like feedback and questions and stuff, and I think that's great. But the fact they haven't done this for gathering yet, and there's a couple other question marks in the expansion, I think alpha may be slightly further away than we expect. Just by like 2 or 3 weeks. Because if they're not going to talk about gathering because they're not ready for the details, then they're not going to want to push the alpha live because then we'll get all the details without the context. So I feel like we may be a little bit further away than we'd initially expect. So I did see people start to say a lot of this feels very much like cool ideas they want to implement, as opposed to things they have in game. Obviously they've got the UI for them, but it feels like these are great ideas, but we still haven't seen the execution. So it's worth it holding on to your hats until alpha, I guess. Anyway, because every expansion has been full of cool ideas so far, for sure.
Yeah, well, on this one, I wish them luck. I think
100%, yeah, 100%.
like the combination of this and talents, really could do a lot for the long term.
Where the fuck are those talent calculators? Come on. I want to see
patience.
I want to see what you're taking away from me.
Slow down. That'll be fun. It'll be fun. Let's go.
Yeah.
Here's the funny thing. If the talents just kind of feel. If they just kind of feel like, oh, there you go, that's it.
Yeah.
Done. Day one, right? You don't really think about them as much anymore. I'd still view it as a positive.
Oh,
because so many of the negatives that came with borrowed power will be gone. So even if the new system isn't like super thrilling, it's probably made the game easier to develop and therefore more sustainable and will allow them to work in the fundamentals more. So it's that funny thing where talents to me are almost a win by default, assuming they get it right enough that they don't have to constantly rework them.
Yeah, that's the difficult thing.